Hey everyone, estás escuchando So Violento So Macabro podcast. Yo soy Ali
Y yo soy Dee.
y hoy Dee nos contará de un caso que sucedió en Denver, Colorado.
Traveling by train can be one of the most wonderful experiences a person can take, especially admiring the North American views that only traveling through the Amtrak train can offer. But in today's case, a mother and her 4 children were traveling from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Denver, Colorado to take a trip that would completely change their lives. However, 20 minutes before arriving to Denver Union Station, Marina is found unresponsive in her seat. This is the tragic case of Marina Plasencia.
Advertencia, la información de este caso puede ser desencadenante para algunos. Tenga en cuenta que algunos de estos casos pueden involucrar menores de edad, abuso, violación o violencia. Escuchen con precaución.
Warning, the information on this case can be triggering to some. Please be advised that some of these cases may involve children, abuse, rape, and violence. Listen with caution.
So when my mother called me that morning and said they were trying to resuscitate my sister at Union Station, I knew something was wrong.
On September 1st, 2016, at 7:54 a.m., medical emergency was requested at the Denver, Colorado Union Station. According to the call, a 28-year-old woman was found unresponsive inside an Amtrak's train. According to this on board, the Amtrak staff and doctors within the cabin of the train performed CPR to a female. However, she was pronounced dead at the scene at 8 a.m. The mother of 4 was traveling from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Denver, Colorado with her boyfriend and her children. According to her long-term boyfriend, 41-year-old Angelo Valentino Mantich, or Mantic, as some pronounce it, and Marina and her 4 children were moving from Milwaukee to Denver after living in Milwaukee for 3 years. So they were going to move back to Denver with her family that lived in Denver. He told officers that she was completely fine throughout the trip, that they even stopped in Chicago, Illinois, and bought sandwiches and enjoyed the sights while they were on that small break. And then they went back inside into their seats to eat the sandwiches that they had bought in Chicago. Within the whole time that she was in the train, according to Angelo, she was completely fine. They were okay. They were having a very peaceful trip. So there was nothing out of the ordinary. Even people within their cabin of the train said that the family seemed fine. There was no altercation. There was no signs that Marina was sick or that she had any sort of, attack or anything. Everything seemed completely normal, according to everybody on board. Even the conductors and the staff, they all mentioned that there was nothing wrong with the family that day. So hearing about a woman being unresponsive and eventually found dead, that was very strange for them on this trip. According to Angelo, he said that after the last stop in Chicago, that they went into their seats and that Marina actually fell asleep. Mind you, the trip took off of Milwaukee on August 30th, and they were supposed to arrive the next morning at Denver. So she was basically falling asleep in order to arrive to Denver, in the morning. According to Angelo, Marina was a heavy sleeper, and he thought that she just had fallen asleep and she would just she's a heavy sleeper, so it's hard for him to wake her up.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Exactly. So 20 minutes before arriving to Denver, he tried to wake her up and she was unresponsive. He claims that he tried again 10 minutes later before arriving to the station, and again, she was unresponsive. So he decided to call for assistance, and shortly after that, the cabin staff called out in the monitors to see if there was any doctors or nurses or any emergency assistants on board to help them out with trying to perform CPR and apply a ventilator in order to get signs of life from Marina.
Family waited at Union Station for her arrival.
My mother called me and told me that they were resuscitating my sister to get down to Union Station. I screamed at the top of my lungs and I ran to my mother. And I jumped in her arms and we both fell right there and just held each other and cried on the platform.
Arrest documents say Marina's boyfriend, Angelo Mancich, alerted staff when he couldn't wake Marina up. She was dead.
When authorities arrived to the scene of the crime, they had observed a numerous amount of bruises on Marina, but they didn't appear to be alarming from their point of view. They just thought that there was probably an assault or a struggle when they were trying to resuscitate her, or like something had happened, but they didn't believe that that was her cause of death. According to the affidavit, Angelo was throwing up and crying on the platform when officers arrived to the scene. Christopher Medina, Marina's brother, recalls that on that day of the murder, Angelo and Marina's family were placed in a conference room while detectives reviewed the scene of the crime. When authorities questioned Angelo about why Marina had certain bruises on her, he said that Marina was easily bruised, that cualquier golpe que le daban, she would bruise very easily. So he said that when she mostly got all of her bruises when she was trying to move out of their home that they were living in. So while they were moving boxes and stuff, she would bump into things or fall onto things, and she would just bruise really easily. He added that they've been moving furniture up and down the stairs, and a screen door had actually closed and hit Marina on the shoulder, and that's why she had bruises all over her shoulders, because that happened when they were moving the furniture in and out of the home. As Marina's family was leaving Union Station, Christopher Medina, Marina's brother, approached the investigators and suggested that they, quote, look into Angelo because he is abusive. On Friday, September 2nd, 2016, an autopsy was conducted on Marina, and Dr. Krista Tim was the one that was holding the autopsy and observing her body. The report suggested that the body had numerous injuries on the body, including bruises on the right shoulder, bruises on both of her upper arms, on her forearm. There was also bruising in her thighs, her calves, and all her upper body, as well as the right side of her abdominal area. She has also been hit in her face, her mouth, her jaw. These were all caused with a blunt object, causing her to bleed between her skull and her scalp. So there was like a small area where there was blood in between there.
A screen door does not do this.
Exactly.
I am clumsy at times, y si me topo en la cama o en una puerta, it's like te pasa en el lugar donde te pegas, no tienes en todo el cuerpo así como está diciendo, like, no, taking boxes, no. Puede ser que uno y otro por acá, pero no, not that way.
Exactly. The autopsy also discovered that Marina also had 10 of her ribs were broken. And that she had pools of blood hidden beneath her abdomen. So it's based on what Angela was saying, this seems very unlikely to be the cause of her injuries. And it was very, suspicious to detectives when they reviewed the autopsy results. In total, Marina had 35, quote, recent injuries. And all over her body. And
30,
the report...
You said 35?
Yeah. So those were like recent. So there was other injuries and bruises that were on her body that were old. But the 35 were the ones that they were most concerned over because they were literally brand new, like almost done like a day prior. to her dead body being found. The report noted that Marina had multiple injuries, but none of them were sufficient to explain her death. The report also mentioned that Marina had severe liver disease, but that also wasn't sufficient to explain her death. Therefore, Marina's cause of manner and death were listed as undetermined at the time of the autopsy. So even though all of these bruises were in her body, there was no conclusion onto how she actually died, based on, everything that the doctor looked into. So there was no real reason why Marina would have passed away. So they found it very odd. So
They couldn't justify it.
Yeah, so the detectives have to look underneath and do more digging in order to come up with a reason why she had passed away. Later that evening, on September 2nd, detectives talked to Angelo to see what had happened to Marina. Angelo told detectives how they lived in Racine, Wisconsin for 3 years and how excited they were to move back to Denver, Colorado. He also started mentioning to them how excited he was and the whole family was about moving back to Denver and like all the plans that they had made during their move. At one point of the interview, detectives noticed something that Angelo had mentioned that they found to be very odd. Angelo told detectives that he wasn't even sitting next to Marina and the kids the entire drive of the train from Wisconsin to Denver. In a way to kind of distance himself from what happened in the train. There was no real reason why he would say that. It was just very odd that he just mentioned that out of the blue. Not even mentioning that to them the day prior, but a day after, to just kind of wedge some distance between Marina and himself.
Okay. Interesting.
Right. Once detectives brought
Era
up
porque estaba lleno, ¿sabes? No porque estaba lleno el tren y se tuvieron que sentar separados.
No.
No dijo el por qué.
No dijo por qué, nomás dijo que él ni estaba sentado cerca de ellos, which was very odd to them because it's like, that's not something that would be either recognizable a day after,
You would say, like, they were saying that you should, algo así se dice en el momento.
Yes. So
Okay.
like he said it with such a gap that almost like he had time to think about it and decided to say it out of the blue.
Got it.
Once detectives brought up the numerous mysterious injuries that Marina had on her body, Angelo proceeded to say that Marina's was bruised easily again, and he continued to say that the injuries were inflicted when she was going up and down the stairs and she was moving stuff, and at one point he said that she fell from the stairs when she was moving some of the boxes.
Ya le está agregando.
Yeah. Angelo also told authorities again that the screen door hit her. But in this retelling of the story, Angelo said that the screen door actually hit her face. And that a couple of weeks ago, their daughter actually scratched her face. And that's why she had like scratches on her face. However, they weren't However, when they interviewed Angelo at Union Station, he never told them about this whole screen door situation hitting her in the face, but on her shoulders. So he was changing the story once again. So every single time that they tried interviewing him, he added more to the story, or he started taking stuff out of the story, or he would change certain things that he would say within the story based on, I guess, what he was telling that day.
Either se le estaban olvidando las cosas o estaban mintiendo todo el tiempo que se le olvidó lo que había dicho el día anterior.
Yeah, exactly. And
or
I mean,
just to make himself look like it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
In these type of situations, in domestic violence situations, usually the abuser is always making up reasons on how the
Oh,
victim
yeah.
um, acquired such bruises in order to remove the blame from themselves and put it back on the victim. So, it's one of those cycles that we see in domestic violence situations. The inconsistencies between how Marina was injured made the detectives suspicious about what actually happened to her on the train. Detectives then asked if he and Marina had any physical altercations prior to, her murder. Angelo confessed and said that they had a physical altercation 2 years prior to their move. He said that that was the only altercation that they've had, and ever since then, they've been fine. Nothing else has happened. They've just lived very happily, and they were just trying to move to Denver to start where they had left off. But detectives weren't quite, believing Angelo's story, especially after what Marina's brother had told them during their interview at Union Station. Going back into their relationship, it's not clear on how Angelo and Marina met. Usually, they said that one of the most, I guess, biggest red flags within their relationship is that Marina and Angelo were 23 years apart. So, from what I had read, she was 19 when she met him, and he was like in his late 30s. And they held the relationship for a couple of years. She said that according to the interviews that they held with the family, she wasn't allowed to talk to her family on the phone or FaceTime anyone unless he was present. And if he was in the room, he had to, see everything she was doing, everything she was saying, and he needed to be around them when she had people over. Based on a recorded interview with a separate family member, Marina had seemed to be living very happily once she moved to Wisconsin with her dad. After living in Wisconsin for a while, the family later found out that Angelo had found out where Marina lived. And then he ended up moving to Wisconsin and finding her. And because of the kindness of her heart, because that's what her parents say, she felt bad for Angelo, and she let him move back into her home. According to different interviews and conversations that detectives had with family members, they said that Angelo was a very aggressive person. He was an alcoholic, he was abusive, and he was very aggressive when he was drunk. And in order for Angelo to move back in with Marina, he promised that he would stop drinking, he would never hit her, and he just wanted, to have a life with him and his kids, and with Marina also. So Marina let him move back in, and her whole attitude changed again, where she was being isolated from her family, from her friends. Nobody was allowed to come over to her house. She wasn't allowed to be on the phone. She wasn't allowed to FaceTime her family. They weren't, they weren't seeing the happy version of Marina that they had knew when she first moved to Wisconsin. According to many of her neighbors, they would describe Marina and Angelo's relationship to be very abusive. One of her neighbors recalls that Marina would wear long sleeves on really hot weather, even, just to cover up all her bruises that she would receive from Angelo. One of Marina's family members said that when Marina visit her at her home, she rolled up her sleeves to show the bruises that Angelo had given her. And in a different occasion that she visited that same family member, She saw finger marks around her neck, proving that Angelo had tried to choke her in one of the altercations that they had. On a different occasion, Marina tried to leave Angelo, and her mother was trying to help her. But once Angelo found out about her trying to escape the abusive relationship, he found her and told her, "If you decide to leave me, I'm going to kill you before you actually leave." When interviewing different neighbors, they all retell a very similar situation. They claimed that Marina was beaten, and everybody knew about it. That she was beaten either daily, every other day, but you could constantly hear the abuse that she was receiving.
¿Y nadie llamó a las autoridades?
Well, even if they tried to interfere, she wouldn't leave, or they wouldn't do anything about it. So it's one of those situations where it's like we would extend and try to give help, and either she would receive it or dismiss it or not press charges. And
we know it's press charges. Yeah, that was the problem.
Yeah, and it's just one of those situations where we know that even though it's very frustrating for us on the outside, we don't know how she feels being in that situation.
Oh, no, cuando estás adentro es un...
Yeah.
Me imagino que es un pinche miedo. Like, it's just something que no sabes lo que es capaz de hacer esta persona. Si ya they already threatened you that they'll kill you, what stops them from hurting your kids or from hurting other family members? It's so scary.
Yeah, I know.
It's infuriating.
It is.
It's so... When it comes to domestic violence, it's so infuriating to see how a person can just control someone else. No matter the sex, it could be a male, it could be female. It's just so frustrating how they just take control and
the person is so...
take advantage of this vulnerable person.
Yeah, and the person is so consumed by fear that just leaving the relationship seems like just a very far away goal. Like it's not something that they could do easily, and it's completely understandable. But as somebody looking from the outside in, you're just like this person can't control your every move.
No.
There's help, but in those situations it's very hard to grab that sort of perspective.
Pero eso cae tan mal cuando we've covered a couple of cases of domestic violence, and we've all seen other cases in social media or TV or whatever the case is. But I've seen cuando pasa algo así de a crime with domestic violence, it's so frustrating to see people leaving comments and saying, almost blaming the victim. Saying, ¿por qué no se salieron? It was so easy for them to just leave. No los tenían amarrados. ¿Por qué no se fueron? Y it's like, shut up. You don't know. Yeah. If you've never been in that situation, you don't know how it feels.
Completely understandable. I mean, I feel like people that are in that type of relationship, it's very hard to describe unless you're living through it, I feel like as much as we try to understand, we don't, because unless you've been through it, you've seen it, you lived it, it's very hard to, I guess, remove that judgment in a way. And like I said, I don't wish that upon anybody ever, but those comments are so easily said. But when you're in that situation, it's very hard to think outside of what's in front of you. And it's heartbreaking. Yeah. Detectives held interviews with a female neighbor that lived across the street from the family. She told detectives that she was aware that domestic violence was happening in the home. She described Angelo as being very physically, mentally, and verbally abusive towards her and her kids. The neighbor told detectives that Angelo was highly training his kids to not say anything about what was going on in the home. At one point, she said that she had taken Marina to the hospital because Angelo had assaulted her. And according to people.com, that same neighbor claimed that Angelo found text messages that she had with Marina and advised her that, she told to Marina and advising her to like leave the relationship. And Angelo then, grabbed the phone, went to the neighbor's home and showed her the text messages and threatened to kill her.
Wow.
When she decided to take, matters into her own hands and try to get requested a protective order against him, the judge actually denied the request. And so instead of trying to help Marina, she just stayed away because, even the court system didn't give her that opportunity to get like a restraining against him.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
It's
Por
crazy.
eso la gente a veces no pide ayuda.
Exactly, because if the justice system, the authorities aren't helping with trying to keep these people in check and try to, give these abusers reason to like, stay in line and not fuck around with other people. They feel like they can do and say and act however they want because the justice system isn't going to do anything to prevent them from doing what they do.
Yeah, y también lo malo es que un papel no, it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop them.
We've said that many times, and it really frustrates me because to these abusers, it's only a piece of paper, when it should be used as something much more greater than it's just a piece of paper. But it's like, no, it's the law. The law is protecting me. But sometimes these abusers don't care. Based on an interview that the foster parents of Marina's children did with detectives, the children actually refused to return to their father's care. According to the documentation, the children would attend school in very filthy and dirty clothes. They looked very malnourished. They would appear with bruises, and they were just very unkept. Most of their teachers were very worried about the children, so they called Child Protective Services and demanded a wellness check and to, see if anything was suspicious in the home that they lived in. When CPS was approaching the home, try to get in contact with Angelo or Marina, Angelo actually refused to open the door, and he hence avoided the issue with CPS. And instead of CPS being more aggressive and take this into a very, I guess, different approach in order to get any sort of justice for these children, they just kind of dropped the ball and let it be. So even if CPS was called multiple times and they would go to the home, Angela would refuse to open the door, and eventually the kids were forgotten and they weren't being taken away from the home.
No, pues por eso para él it was like there's no consequences.
Yeah.
So no le importaba, dijo, me voy a salir con la mía. And
yeah. And even when Marina was within the home, Angelo actually threatened her not to open the door when CPS came to to investigate the home. And in order for her to, I guess the fear that he implied to her is that they would take the children away. So according to her brother, he said that Marina would not open the door for CPS, even though that would be like a window for some sort of
For
help,
help, right?
she
Pobrecita.
would actually not open the door or not respond to CPS because she was afraid that they would take her children away. And that was like something that she dreaded. According to Christopher, he said that she loved her children, and even if it meant staying in this horrible relationship where she was getting beaten every day, in order for her to protect her children, she would stay there and would take the abuse because the last thing she wanted is her children to be taken away.
Él sabía cómo manipularla.
Yeah, definitely.
Se lo creyó, pobrecita.
I know. According to the family members, there was a time that Angelo was actually in prison in 2015. During this point in time, Marina had actually slept with a man and had gotten pregnant from him. This infuriated Angelo, which caused a very deep rage towards Marina. In an interview with detectives, Marina's mother actually told them that she received a disturbing call from Marina when Angelo was released from prison. And in that call, Marina told her mother that Angelo actually molested the baby and just hung up, and nothing was done about this molestation of the child.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
This man is a monster.
He is. Completely. And the same reaction that you had was the same reaction that I had when I read the affidavit. I had to read that whole statement 3 or 4 times to understand the fact that he was upset that Marina had slept with a different man and that he had a child with this man. And instead of just letting it be like something that happened, in order to hurt her, he molested this poor baby in order to have this...
To get back at her?
Yeah.
So stupid.
I know.
I can't wait to hear how his ending. I can't wait to hear what happened. I mean, I'm hoping there was justice served, but
Well, mind you, this whole case takes place in 2016. So many of these interviews and these investigations happen within like almost months and years after the murder. So even with the autopsy, they didn't do anything to Angelo. They were just gathering all this information in order to...
They were gathering all of this, yeah.
In order to find any sort of information or like possible way to, put him
link him to it,
to the murder.
Yeah, to have enough to be like, he did this. These are the reasons why we think he did it. Do you know why he was in prison in 2015?
It doesn't say why he was in prison. I know that he was a very angry man, and there was a lot of parts in his that he had a lot of charges for different things. Most of the time, either it was like domestic violence towards Marina, but throughout his crime spree, it doesn't say. I even tried to look for his record online, but it doesn't say why he was in prison. But for sure, it was he was only in prison for like less than a year. He wasn't in the system for a longer period than that. So it's still unsure, and even if I did research on it, it still doesn't give me like information on what he was in prison for. It just says that he was in prison for that amount of time. A friend of Marina told detectives that she wasn't aware of the abuse until she actually moved near the family. She says that at one point she discovered that Angelo actually broke Marina's eardrum. The friend also said that whenever Marina was on the phone with her family members, he demanded her to be on speakerphone. So even if the friend was in the home and she was on FaceTime or on a phone call, he was in that house and he wanted her to take the phone call and be on the phone with him present at all times. During one of the conversations that Marina had actually had with her mother brings up the actual part of creating a plan to leave Angelo. And during this point of time, Marina was getting frustrated with the idea of continuing to live with Angelo. And her mother actually brought up the idea of moving back to Colorado and leaving him there and all these possible options. And Marina was, feeding onto it. But once he heard the conversation that Marina was having, he hung up the phone, and Angelo actually threatened that if she left with the kids, he would kill her again. So whenever she had the conversation with anybody and he heard of any sort of plan, he would say that he would kill her.
Ya nadie podía decir nada porque me imagino in most of these cases, if the abuser hears conversations like this, le va peor a la persona.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure if this is the reason he went to jail, but according to a police report that was dug up for the affidavit, in 2015, Angelo was arrested and charged with assault. Within the report, it said that there was a disturbance at the home because Angelo had become very upset at the race of a man on a television show, and he questioned Marina about a man that she had slept with. That infuriated Angelo to the point where he grabbed Marina and punched her in the head several times with a closed fist. And then suddenly she couldn't hear out of her left ear. Apparently, these are constantly done to her to the point that at the end of her life, she actually had become deaf from one ear because of the repetitive head trauma that she had received from Angelo.
Imagínate qué tan fuerte le tuvo que dar para que eso pasara.
It's completely heartbreaking. I mean, I like in my brain, I cannot connect such behavior. Like, to me, it's like, imagine just, it's insane to even think of how hard he needed to hit her in order to eventually make her deaf from her ear. It's crazy. At one point, Ruben, Marina's father, told detectives that one of her grandchildren had told him that during an argument, with Angelo, he had grabbed the baby that they had, the youngest child, the baby girl, grabbed her and put her on the side of the balcony and told her, "Do what I say or the baby goes."
The baby que tuvo con el otro
señor.
Otro hombre, huh?
Yeah. I know. The most alarming thing about all these testimonies is that Angelo had full control of Marina. The fear of Marina that she had towards Angelo was much more stronger than her willpower to leave. And in no way are we blaming Marina. But the fear of leaving her children alone with Angelo was stronger than running away from him.
Y el miedo que también le tenían los niños a él.
Yeah.
The trauma of seeing your sibling.
Yeah.
They're threatening them to throw them off the balcony. It's understandable why these kids lied.
Yeah. They according to the affidavit, I swear this affidavit is like 10 12 pages long of constant mentioning of the abuse that she had been going through. But it also showed different testimonies of the children telling, their neighbor or their grandparents or like different people that were in the home that, he was being abusive to Marina and to them. But there was only so much that, people can do because the justice system failed all of them.
Cuando, I'm imagining the authorities interviewed the kids, right? And they never said anything about their dad?
According to the, at least to the affidavit, the one that they did during the investigation of this case, they didn't mention anything about interviewing the children. They
Okay.
interviewed the foster parents, but never the children. I'm not sure why they didn't do it, but it wasn't on the record.
Okay, so the kids never covered for the dad. You never
No.
found anything.
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
I thought you said that earlier. That's why I said that they lied. So they never covered for the
They
dad.
never covered for the dad,
Okay.
but they always made it seem like the dad wasn't being, aggressive
Que todo
towards
estaba
them.
bien.
Yeah.
Got
So even if somebody asked if everything was okay, they were like, they would just say, "Oh, mom's like sick," or "We need to take mom to the hospital."
Mhm.
And they would slip up that, he was hitting her or something, but never did they say that Angelo, hit her.
Yeah.
It was always kind of like an accident, like an oops, I said what I wasn't supposed to say kind of thing. During the last call with her mother, she had finally had enough of Angelo. She was ready to move back to Denver. According to the affidavit, Marina and 7 of her family members had made a secret plan to bring Marina back to Denver to escape Angelo's abuse. The plan was that Marina and the kids were going to take a trip to Denver and just casually move in with her mother. But Angelo refused to let Marina leave with the children. So the family created a new plan where Marina, the children, and Angelo were going to move back to Denver. That, they were going to continue their life when they moved back from Wisconsin to Denver and just live there and live with her mother while they found their own home. Marina, according to this affidavit, Marina would separate from Angelo and file for a restraining order against him. And once that restraining order was finally placed in order, she was going to cut all ties with him and completely start fresh. Christopher told Channel 9 News that the reason that he was going to meet his sister at Union Station and why her family was at Union Station the day of that she was found dead was because they were there to tell Angelo that she was going to go home with their mother and that Marina was going to be with her family and the kids were going to be with them and they were going to take care of the kids and Marina and he wasn't going to see them again. However, things didn't go as planned.
Era para sentirse más protegida ella. Porque ya con toda su familia no se iba a tener tanto miedo.
Yeah. She said that according to what her mother says in the affidavit is that she felt very alone. And the only way she felt secured was to be with her mother. And her main reason was that her brother was going to be there. Her mother was going to be there. Her aunts were going to be there. Even though, it's such a tragic thing that she was going through, she had that family support that she always wanted. And she was finally had the strength to leave Angelo. Soon after the family left from Colorado, Angelo had actually called one of his neighbors to tell him, quote, "If they ask about Marina and I, say that we had a good relationship." This neighbor didn't know about Marina's death until the news outlets arrived to the scene of the neighborhood where they lived at. According to many of the neighbors, they said that a lot of these interviews were held way after the murder happened. Most of these conversations that they had previously to talking to detectives were done through Fox 31 Denver News. In this news station, they had a segment where they go and try to solve these true crime investigations and give more attention to these crime cases that basically go unsolved. They go into the neighborhoods, they ask the neighbors, they ask all the concrete questions. And neighbors felt like they needed to, put somebody that was very abusive in jail. So they opened up about Marina's case. They told them about what was going on. And then once all this information was gathered, Fox 31 News sent that information to detectives, pushed this information out into the outlets, and finally got some sort of attention from the detectives. And that's when they started to actually make these interviews and talk to everybody and find out what really happened to Marina in that Amtrak train.
So, mientras todo esto pasaba, Angelo seguía libre.
Yeah. Actually, bringing up Angelo, at some point after the, case started going cold, Angelo actually got into any relationship with a girl or a woman that actually resembled Marina a lot. There wasn't any concrete interviews about this, but I did hear it in an interview that based on the affidavit that they was actually somebody he was dating at the time that resembled Marina to the T. So it was very disturbing to come across that information, because
how long after?
They said that it was very shortly after the murder, so maybe like a year after or so. So he quickly moved on to his next victim.
So so this case, everything you're saying, it took a while for them to get all this information, and he was living his life for a while.
And it was frustrating for Marina's family because
I'd imagine.
they knew that Angelo had something to do with this. They didn't have the concrete evidence to, put this man in jail, but they knew that he had something to do with it. In September 2022, investigators reached out to Dr. Bill Smock, a national recognized expert on strangulation and suffocation. Detectives showed the copy of Marina's autopsy report as well as the medical examiner's case files, the photographs that were taken of the scene, as well as any relevant case evidence and reports.
Right.
In May of 2023, Dr. Smock determined that based on his review on the information and the records on Marina's case, Marina Plasencia died of direct result of asphyxiation from suffocation. He also determined that Marina's injuries were a result of an assault, which included a blunt force trauma and suffocation, which this all determines that Marina was actually suffocated on the day that she was murdered. So all of these injuries that the autopsy first showed had no relevancy because those had already happened days, weeks, and months prior to her being murdered. They have no concrete evidence on what happened in the train, but they know for a fact that Marina was suffocated. On October 30th, 2023, Angelo Mantich was charged with first-degree murder in connections with the death of 28-year-old Marina Plasencia and is currently held at the downtown detention center without bond, according to jail records. It wasn't immediately clear if he had entered a plea or retained an attorney, but court records show that he is scheduled for a court appearance on April 19, 2024, which is only like a week from now.
Yeah.
So as of now, there is no concrete information on why they arrested him or the concrete evidence that they had. The last sufficient thing that was told to the media was that they know that Marina was suffocated to death. Now we just have to wait until his court appearance to know the details behind his arrest and how the detectives finalize the reason why they arrested Angelo in connection to her death.
Yeah, 7 years later.
Yeah.
Wow.
During this whole time, Christopher Medina has been the one to advocate for Marina, to call detectives, to see if there's any update on the case. He was the first one to talk to news outlets about Marina's case again. He finally said that his sister is receiving the justice that she deserves. He is so beyond grateful that people didn't stay quiet when it came to her case, but he knows that there's still a long way to go. This is a tragic case of Marina Plasencia.
How much did you want to see Angelo's reaction when he was arrested yesterday?
I would have given any dollar amount possible in the world. You could take the right hand right now, and I need this for work.
Medina says justice may have been delayed for his sister, but he insists it won't be denied. He promises to be at every court hearing.
So yeah, I'm gonna be there. I want to make sure he sees me, so he can always remember, because I'm her brother.
If you or anyone you know is experiencing domestic violence, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or go to thehotline.org. All calls are toll-free and confidential. The hotline is available 24/7 and is offered in more than 170 languages. Again, if you see something, say something. But also realize that fear isn't the type of control. There's always help out there. If you have to do it or someone else has to do it, there's always help for you out there. If you're experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. It's never late.
It isn't. And hopefully the justice system también que cambie.
Yeah, definitely.
Porque desafortunadamente mucha gente no habla por
miedo.
Por miedo o porque las autoridades no hacen mucho. And unfortunately, authorities really sometimes can't do much because if you don't want to press charges, unfortunately, they can't force you.
Yeah, there's only so much they can do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And unless you're willing to put in the charge in order, to proceed with any sort of restraining order or, to be taken away from this person, it's tragic.
It is.
But
the justice system has to change.
Yeah.
Because authorities, if the victim says, yes, I want to press charges, they'll take them.
Yeah.
Right? They'll take he or she. But if the justice system has something, and I know we said this before, something needs to change because a piece of paper is not going to change anything. Leaving that person in jail for 24 hours is not going to do anything. It's
not. And we've seen this happen not only in now, but we saw this happen. It's still part of our justice system. It hasn't changed. We've had this happen since 80s, 90s, 2000s. We're in 2000, in 2010. We're in 2020, and a paper is still not having the effect that the justice system thinks that it does. I feel like a lot of these situations can be avoided. A lot of murders can be avoided, but there has to be a different way in order to prevent these things from happening.
Yeah.
Y este fue el caso de esta semana. Again, all of the details regarding the domestic violence hotline will be in our description, as well as in all of our social media posts and in the description of those posts as well. Again, if you need those information, if it's now or in the future, just send us a message and we will forward those details to you. Again, don't let the fear of somebody controlling you or telling you what to do prevent you from leaving a domestic violence situation. We know it's difficult. We know it's hard, especially when children are involved. It makes things a little bit more heartbreaking, but trust me, there is help. You can get out of this. You're not alone, and there is help out there for you. You just have to either go out there and get it or talk to somebody and have them help you. And with that, I don't know, do you want to
And
add
also,
anything?
if you're on the other side of it, right? The abuser. If you're on the abuser side of it, if you know that you're having these issues, if you have anger issues, control issues, whatever it is, if there's trauma in your past, if you know that you are capable of hurting someone else, please seek help. Do something to change those behaviors, because it also needs to start from that side of it. That way violence can decrease, and for murders to decrease too. Like, there's help out there.
And also to end the cycle,
Exactly.
because at some point the abuser saw it from somewhere, and it's just a cycle that continues. And I feel like once we break that cycle is when you break the cycle of abuse. And it starts with trying to reach out for help. And it's never too late.
It's not.
But it's so hard to talk about these situations because it's very hard to put yourself in the situation of the abused, and try to find some empathy or some reasoning with the abuser. And I think it's always that one. It's very heavy to talk about these situations, but I mean, the help is out there. And
y también si eres un hombre que te estén abusando, también habla, di algo. Because I feel like there's this stigma that there's this thing that women don't abuse. How is a woman capable of doing it if the male is stronger? It does. It's not about strength.
It's not about strength.
It's
about control.
Exactly.
It's about control.
So speak up. Don't feel ashamed. If you need the help, say something.
Exactly. I feel like for a big portion, a lot of these situations are based on women because of many reasons. But we also know that a lot of men go through domestic violence, and it's all about trying to break that cycle. It's como dicen, men can't show their emotions, men can't show that they're being abused, men can't show any sort of weakness in society. But todo eso es mentira. Like, we are all humans, we all go through our different struggles, and men can be part of the victim as well, like many other situations. So again, reach out for help. Those hotlines are also for you. They're not only female based. You could also reach out for help, and we encourage you to go look for help. And if you need any sort of assistance when it comes to getting that information, our DMs are always open. Just send us a message and we will send those informations and those links to you in order to receive the necessary help. If you want to listen to any of our other episodes, you are more than welcome. Just listen, you can listen through it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever podcasts are streamed, you can just type in Soy Venezuela Macabro podcast, and our catalog should be there. Give us a follow, rate, review, subscribe, all those good things, please, and thank you. We would really appreciate it. Leaving a review and a rating help us, get all of these information out to other people, give power back to those who have been silenced, and overall, keep the engagement up when it comes to sharing the stories of those that have, gone through horrible situations and need our help as a community to, be seen and be heard. But yeah,
You can do a lot by just sharing.
Definitely. And we just want to say thank you for those that have. We really appreciate it. And we love you guys. Thank you so much. You can also give us a follow on our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, or X as it's known now, or on Threads. Just type in at SVSM_podcast, or you can go on Facebook and type in Surveillance Macabro podcast, and we should be the first to pop up. We make it very easy for you guys to find us, so please give us a follow. Go talk to us on the comments, talk to us on our DMs, tag us on your story. We love that. We really appreciate it. And for all of those that have shared us on their reels, showing us being part of their routine, you have no idea how happy that makes me.
Shout out to Jen. She's like we're in her morning routine. I'm like, oh, that's so cute.
I am so unbelievable thankful for that.
You.
Being a part of your morning routine is amazing, because for us, seeing that, it's like, oh my God, really? You listen to us? Oh my God, thank you. But we really appreciate it. It means so much to us. You have no idea. When I saw that, I fangirled. I really did. I was like, oh my God. So thank you so much for doing that. We really appreciate it. And if you want to share pictures of your dogs, again, please do so. I really love seeing your dogs or your cats or your reptiles or your bunnies. Please just send us. It's been a while. I'm requesting this out of my own heart. It's springtime, and I just need some happiness in my life, okay?
We need those cute pictures.
We do. And so just tag us on those, and I would be unbelievably happy. Trust me, it's the best thing that you can do for me. And I would really appreciate it. But with that, I think that's about it. You have anything to say?
That's it. No.
Yeah? Okay.
No. I think that's good. I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you so much.
We have been feeling sick this past week. So.
Yeah. I've had a cold for around a little bit over a week. So
since
my
last
voice.
Week when I was recording my episode, I remember you were sick.
And hence why I didn't talk so much in that episode, because I was starting to get sick. So I've been sick this whole week. So I do apologize if my voice sounds very raspy or out of breath, or if I'm coughing in the middle of of this episode.
We're gonna get extra follows because your voice sounds very.
It sounds very sensual. Sounds very sensual, very rock and roll. I love it. It reminds me of that episode of Phoebe on Friends when she's like singing "Smelly Cat." That's me. I'm gonna start singing "Smelly Cat."
I'm gonna go with Friends after this.
Oh my God, me too. But thank you so much for listening to us and for listening to our rants. We really appreciate it. And also, we have a YouTube channel. So
we do.
I forgot to plug that in there, but we have a YouTube channel.
Nos estamos maquillando.
I know, where we look decent. So if you guys want to follow us there, we have 6 amazing subscribers, so we're unbelievably happy about that. So if you want to see this episode, you can go on there and listen to us there if you want.
This is new, so
I know
we have
we have 2 episodes,
and this one will be the 3rd one.
Yes. So if you want to go ahead and do that, we would be so happy. Again, thank you so much for even letting us be a part of your day and listening to us. We really appreciate it. And I don't know what else. I've been talking so much.
That's it.
My voice is gonna go. My voice is gonna leave. But with that said, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you next. I was like, bleh.
See you guys next week.
See you guys next week.
Stay
Adios.
spooky. Stay spooky. Bye.
Bye. Quédate spooky.